All right, welcome to another edition of the Knudson Garden Update. We are going to start this update here in the Jaycee Park next to the school because this is a place where students have planted things in the past, and I wanted to give you an update on the milkweeds that are here in Jaycee Park that our students have planted. Let's take a look. So some of you might know that monarch butterflies will only lay their eggs on certain kinds of plants. This is one of them. This is what's called a rush milkweed. It's native to Arizona and Nevada and California and Mexico. It's got these really cool flowers. As you can see, there's even a milkweed bug walking around on this. He's trying to hide from me. Okay. Aphids like rush milkweeds as well. And so I wanted to just give an update. We've got some nice flowering going on here. They're very pretty flowers here on the rush milkweed. And there's also some fruiting. If you look, you can see that we've got some pods that are starting to form on the milkweed. These are where the seeds are going to start growing. And when they are done, they actually pop open and you have these fluffy seeds that float away on little bits of, looks like cotton. It's a very cool reproductive strategy. And we've got the rush milkweed here by this bush. It's a nice, big, healthy rush milkweed. And then there's another one over here walking down the sidewalk almost when you leave the park. And this rush milkweed is a little bit smaller, but it's starting to flower as well. As you can see, we've got this nice flowering end here. We have planted other milkweeds here in Jaycee Park, but they haven't done too well. But these two milkweeds have been doing all right, so I wanted to give you an update in case you ever walk through Jaycee Park and walk past these milkweeds. You can know that actually these were milkweeds that students at KO planted. All right, here we are in the garden, and I have a bag of beans that I would like to plant, but I have a problem. So here's an engineering design challenge for you. These beans need to grow on something that is tall because they're what we call pole beans, and they send these vines up and they like to grow up and up and up. They need some support as they grow in order to be productive. So the big question is, what could I do in this garden to meet this criterion that the pole beans need something to grow up? It needs to be something at least 4 or 5 feet tall. It needs to be something that is strong enough to not blow over in the wind. It needs to be something that's strong enough to carry the weight of the vines, and it needs to be something that can fit in the beds. So I wonder, looking at our garden, what already exists here and maybe what can we build to do that. So let's take a look and see what maybe some ideas we can have. So looking at the garden, I've got 2 of our 3 sisters planting. I've got my corn and I've got my pumpkins. There are some trees. Looks like our jujube got blown over a little in the wind. Looks like we've got some old sunflower stalks and a banana tree. And I also picked up from the store these bamboo rods that are 6 feet tall. So the question is, looking through our garden, where could I plant my beans so that they could have something to grow up? And I think I've got some options here. So let's talk about a few of the things that maybe we can do to help our beans grow. So my first option is to use the corn. This is why beans are what are called the third sister in 3-sister planting. We've got this corn and it's growing pretty tall and it's going to keep growing. If I take my beans and I plant some beans near the base of my corn stalks, so I'll take a few beans out if I plant them near my corn, then maybe that will provide a place for my beans to grow. They'll grow up the corn stalks. And maybe that will be something that will work to meet my criteria for my beans to grow up something that can give them some structural support. So we'll just plant a few beans at the bases of our corn so that these pole beans can have a pole, which in this case is going to be corn, to grow up. All right. So we'll plant a few beans around these corn stalks, and that might be something that can work to help my beans get some kind of structural support. All right. A lot of you probably figured out I might also try planting some beans next to my old sunflower stalks. This could be a good solution to my problem. So I'll plant some beans by my corn stalk, my sunflower stalks, because sunflowers are also native to the Americas. And let's just move this vine over a little bit so that my bean can get some sun, because that's the other criterion. My bean needs to have sun to grow. So we've got another sunflower stalk over here that maybe we could plant some beans around. So we'll move our black plastic over a little bit, plant a bean there, see how that works. I've also got these bamboo rods. These are really cheap. I got them for $3 at Lowe's. And so one question you might ask is, well, what could I do with these 6-foot long bamboo rods to help build a structure that would support my beans and meet the criteria for the solution for my bean problem? So let's take a minute and think about what we could do for that. So here is the beginning of my solution. I'm going to combine two of the strongest structures in engineering, a triangle and a circle, to make a cone. Some people call them teepees. I'm going to call it a cone. Okay, I'm going to bring the rods together at the top, and then all the way down we'll have this structure that the pole beans can grow up, and they will come together at the top to add strength to each other so they don't tip over. I've got some twine here at the bottom, so I'm going to take that twine. I'm going to use it to tie these rods together at the top to make a bean cone, a conical structure that's roughly conical, pretty close to a cone. All right, so let's see how it works. So I'm going to take this string and I'm going to start tying these together at the top so that we have a nice conical structure. All right, so I'll show you what it's like when we're done. All right, so we've got our cone built, tied together at the top. Easy structure, simple to build, pretty strong because all of the force is going to be distributed among the stakes because they are tied at the top. So they're going to help each other stand up. And it's pretty tall. That should be good for our beans to grow up. So we'll go ahead and start planting our seeds now around the base of the cone. So we'll take out a bean And we'll just go ahead and plant it here. And then we'll put another bean at the base of this rod, and then another bean. We'll put that over here at the base of that rod. And we'll just keep going around. We'll put one bean at the base of each rod. And if we have extras, we'll put extras around each base. But these should be pretty high germination beans. They should germinate. Had good luck with them. I also pre-soaked them so that they would have a little water to get started with. All right, I've got some more beans. I'm going to plant them around my other corn beds, and that should solve the problem of beans needing a structure. So I've got beans planted at the base of our bean cone. I found an old dead branch that I put in, and we'll see how the whole bean grows up that. It's not quite as tall as I would like, doesn't quite meet the criteria, but we'll see what happens. Why not? We experiment, we're scientists. We've got beans planted around our sunflower stalks, around all of our corn, and again this sunflower stalk here. All right, before we move on to finish talking about our bean planting, I wanted to share with you an update on our worms. Some of you know that we've had a worm bin growing for some time now, and it has generated some nice rich compost. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this compost and I'm going to sprinkle some of it, not a lot, but some of it at the base of some of our plants, because I noticed that our pumpkin plants are a little bit gray. If you look at their leaves, they're not getting as much nutrients as they might need. We're just going to add a little bit of compost here around the base of our, we'll just kind of work it into the soil. We don't want to over compost them, but we want to give them a little bit to work with. So we'll add some in here. Just kind of work it into the soil so that when they get watered, some of that compost works its way in. Vermicompost or worm compost is a very rich source of nutrients. And so you definitely don't want to overdo it. We don't grow things in pure compost because that would be too much. But a little bit of compost can be helpful. Even in this rich garden soil of ours, because we have been growing nonstop for almost a year now, actually over a year now. So it's worth it to help out our pumpkins, because they are going to be, or at least we hope if it works out well, our pumpkins are going to need a lot of nutrients, a lot of potassium, and a lot of calcium and nitrogen and phosphorus, and our compost can help them get some of that. Things that we've been putting in our compost over this past year, we've given them old beet greens. They liked those. They loved watermelon rinds and banana peelings. They have also very much enjoyed paper. They like cardboard. They eat that up. They like coffee filters. We've given them some coffee filters. They like those, the worms do. They just eat them up, and then they poop out that nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and other nutrients in a form that is accessible to the plants. So it is something of a symbiotic relationship that worms share with our plants and our bacteria and fungi in the soil. Worms are decomposers. They're an important part of the ecosystem that supports all of the organisms in our garden. Okay? So we're just going to help them out a little bit here. I think we got all of our pumpkins. I'm going to give a little bit to our banana here, because our banana, you can see, interestingly, our banana sucker has outgrown the mother plant, which is struggling. Bananas do require a lot of nutrition, and so it's helpful for them to have a little compost too. So we'll give them a little compost. And then we'll wrap it up here talking about our bean successes and our hopes for a bean success. All right. A little more compost here for this other sucker. And we'll give some more to the mother plant as well. All right. One thing to consider, though, now that we've added a little bit of compost to our plants, is the level of the soil. Because some people think that, oh, well, plants get the matter they need from their soil, which is absolutely not entirely true. In fact, plants get very little of the matter they need from soil. That's why we really only have to give them a very small amount of compost. Most of the matter that plants need to grow comes from the air and from water. Because if you look, no matter what kind of plant is growing in this garden, the level of the soil in the beds is about the same. So if plants were really getting a lot of matter from soil, you would think that the level of the soil would change, and in particular that it would go down depending on the kind of plant that's growing in it, if the plant's big or small. But it turns out plants really don't extract a lot of matter from the soil. They get most of the matter they need to grow from the carbon dioxide in the air and from the water that the soil helps provide a medium for. So, having said that, it's time to get back to our beans and to wrap it up for this episode. So that'll wrap it up for this week's Knudson Garden Update. We'll check up on the peanuts and the banana and the loofah and our watermelons and some of our other plants another week, but I think we'll wrap this up for now. Let's cross our fingers and hope that our bean solution meets our criteria. It certainly has met our constraints, because I have got what I work with, and that's all I got. So have a good week. Stay safe, cover your faces, wash your hands, and we will update you again soon.